Oh, okay.
Oh,
The meeting is being recorded. You recording this?
I'm recording. Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting.
That's fine. I don't mind. I
Oh,
never say in an interview or put down on paper anything I'm not willing to stand by.
okay, that's a good. I like that because that's not very like politicians, is it?
No, and the majority of people say things they really don't mean and regret afterwards.
Yeah.
I've tried very hard to cure myself of that.
And do you think you've done that successfully?
And
I think you have.
more or less.
That's great. Cool. Yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting because obviously everything that's going on now, which must be, well, it's just so depressing, really.
It is depressive how the human race still has not got rid of war.
Yeah.
We don't need war because there are no winners in war, only losers. Everybody loses, nobody wins. And they have to sit down and talk at the end. So why not sit down and talk at the beginning and not go to war?
Why, from Putin's perspective and his administration, why do you think they've invaded Ukraine? Do you think it's well, he's just quite a madman, really, but do you think
people are saying that he's overstepped the line and he's gone mad, and I think that could very well be true, because there are some people who cannot face losing. They cannot face that they just might be wrong. And I think Putin is probably one of them. And the sooner they get rid of him, take his power away or shoot him if they can't, the sooner they can begin to resolve it.
And I think that it's quite similar in the sense of like, when they invaded Ukraine, it wasn't a massive shock because it's sort of been bubbling around.
Yes,
that it could happen, and I'm guessing that was the same when Hitler invaded Poland. Really, that there was talk of him expanding his empire, and as you say, like
absolutely, it's a new version. It's not. History doesn't repeat itself. It just throws up version after version of the same thing, and we don't learn. The human race seems to be incapable of learning. Why can't we cherish our differences and learn to live with them?
Yeah, I know. And would you say that? Would you say that? Well, with these dictators, it's all about greed and pushing the step further and further and further.
Yes, it is about greed for power and status. And it's usually somebody who has a deep inferiority complex that has to go along this road. The majority of people settle for being flawed beings and settle for what they have got and not what they haven't got but want. But megalomaniacs can't settle at anything less than what they set out to get. And they make very bad leaders.
So I would say, going back to my questions, I would say my first question was about your upbringing, because I just think it would be interesting to quickly touch on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know a fair amount, but would you say that well, obviously your upbringing was very unique. And
I'm not sure it was unique,
okay,
but it was certainly not how things were meant to be.
no. And how do you think? Do you think because of you growing up in that scenario in Germany, do you think that's really sort of made you actively fight against war or any administration of war? Or do you think there's a connection there?
Oh, most definitely it has made me anti-war, because I have lived the futility of war. Nobody wins in war. Everybody loses who gets involved in war. The innocent lose, as well as those who are aggressive and responsible for war.
And do you remember seeing resistance?
I was only 4 when I came to England. I was certainly very conscious of the war. All the talk in families was about war. And I remember grown-ups saying to me as a little girl, remember there's a war on.
Right.
Waste not, want not, remember there's a war on. Don't do that, remember there's a war on. You were conscious of war all the time.
Okay. And how, like, obviously, as you say, you were quite young, but was that, what was that like? Because like, seeing what's going on in Ukraine now, there's sort of 2 sides. There's a very depressing side, and there's obviously lots of loss and suffering and refugees. And then there's another side of sort of a collective group that are not just agreeing or not just backing down from the Putin regime, but actually together we're supporting financially or whatever, or with defense weapons. But there's a group and there's an ideology of, you know, fighting against this, and the West in a way are coming together. Did you see that side at all?
I'm not sure I've quite grasped the question.
So
there was huge camaraderie.
Yeah,
that's by the war. There was much more community spirit.
Yes.
Helping each other, concern about each other. That was the good side of it.
Yeah.
It brought people together to cooperate. And of course, the more people are unanimous about something, the stronger that is.
Yes.
So there was that side of the war, but there was also the huge anxiety.
Yeah.
You didn't know if there was going to be a tomorrow. You
and
feared that a bomb might get you. So you couldn't rely on there being a tomorrow. I remember that anxiety very clearly.
And I guess that was that must have been massive, considering that your way of communicating back then was, I'm guessing, letters. Because obviously now, well, there's communication's a bit easier now. So
we had radio.
Radio, yes, of course, yeah.
We didn't have television, but we had radio.
So,
and of course, there was a lot of misinformation, both disinformation and deliberate misinformation.
Did you feel that you could get the truth of the situation from any radio or?
Well, I was a kid and I looked to the adults. I would believe what the adults said. So if they got it wrong, I believed I believed what they were thinking.
And
because I was a kid.
A lot must have got it wrong. And
yes, I'm sure they did.
And
of course we had things like Lord Haw-Haw, who was a plant by the Germans for disinformation.
And there's obviously what's going on now. Some Russian soldiers have been lied to about the invasion, so they are, which is another terrifying thing. And as you say, it seems history repeating itself again.
History doesn't repeat itself; it just comes again and again in different versions, slightly different versions, and we don't learn the lesson.
So going on from that, I had the question about this idea of how we can help currently with the Ukraine invasion. And I guess that's mainly addressed to how people from the UK can help. Would you say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are helping in offering to take refugees. I mean, that is something to care for those who are made homeless and driven out and in trouble. But how do you stop people fighting? How do you get the message across that fighting is futile? Because you have to end up sitting down and talking and negotiating a situation acceptable to the warring sides. You have to resolve the conflict face to face through talking. So why not do that from the beginning? Why not resolve a conflict by talking and avoid resorting to war? Of course, if there's a conflict, you can't talk. So you need a safe, what you call it, go-between, negotiator. And I think there are plenty of countries that would offer a negotiator. We really don't need war. We are all one species. And I don't think enough people, I think our education systems are very much at fault. We categorize people into them and us. And we should never do that. There is only one us, and anybody who is not us is not the same species. And there are some real threatening not us's that we should be doing something about instead of fighting each other. We should be fighting climate change. That is the real non-us that is threatening and dangerous. Not each other. We turn each other into enemies to fight with, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I guess like it's been 2 weeks of the Ukraine invasion, and I was thinking yesterday, just what a waste of money and life and resources.
Absolute waste.
As you say, things like climate change, something that we can all come together on. And I think, well, I'm hoping that my generation has. It seems with Greta and the summit in Glasgow and the Paris Accord and all these things that it is a real focus. But as you say, when something like a war happens, it sort of delays everything else, and that's a real shame, really. And I think, yeah, as you pointed on there, education and not having this us and them idea is absolutely massive.
Well, I think war is futile because it is cheating younger generations of a future. Literally killing a whole lot of the future generations, the young. More young get killed than old in wars. And it's abusing resources. They're wasted in war when they should be used for a better future. We need all our resources. We don't need to waste them on war.
What was post World War II like? So you're in the UK still. There were celebrations. What was that like?
Well,
what was the general sentiment?
Oh, we had street parties. It was a terrific boost. But it only lasted a little while before we had to face the damage that had been done.
Yeah, so
war does such a lot of damage to the exterior and to the interior people. It changes people. It changes their attitude and their whole life. We do not need war. Nobody wins a war. Everybody loses. I can't emphasize that strongly enough. And I despair that people just will not see it that way. Oh, you have to have wars, I keep being told. No, you don't have to have wars. You have to eventually sit down and sort the problem out. Why not sit down and sort it out before getting into fights?
When you do your talks and you speak to young children especially, or high school children or university students, what do you leave any advice for them?
Do I leave
advice
for them? Yes, I often get asked nowadays, what would my message to them be? And I want young people to think much more for themselves, to question everything, look for evidence, talk with people. We could avoid wars if people did a lot more thinking and talking and approaching all others, anybody that strangers, people they don't know, with an attitude of sameness, another human being, another interesting human being who's different from me, and it could benefit me simply to get to know them. Whereas the general approach, whether it's conscious or unconscious, is you're not like me, you're different, I don't like you. You're a threat to me because you're very different. I think we should find difference interesting. I always find a different person interesting.
Yeah.
And I start off expecting them to find me interesting and wanting to talk with me. And if you take that attitude, you will find that most people respond to it and actually are interested in talking with you. And once you get talking, you're just two human beings. You're not two combatants.
Yeah, I totally agree. And would you? Yeah, I guess I'm sticking with the UK. I think what I found in my teaching was it was hard for my kids. Ooh. Hello.
Are you still?
Yeah.
You're still there.
Hi, can you hear me?
We got frozen.
We got frozen.
I've got a message. Your internet connection is unstable. How do I stabilize it?
You put your hands together and pray. That's all you can do. I was just going to say, do you think, well, from my teaching, I met children that I wanted them to expand and meet different people more. And we tried to organize a trip to a local Buddhist temple, which would have been interesting for them.
Excellent.
Something that they'd never, ever go to.
Yeah.
So would you say that it's a lot with the parents really to ensure that their children travel enough to their financial capabilities, but even wherever they are in the UK, there'll be, especially religion wise, different religious buildings that they can visit for free, park, anything where they can interact with other people, because I think that fear of the other will grow if you're limited to your own people, really.
Very important issue, educating the parents. And some parents will respond, some parents will be very angry that you're and feel attacked. How to get parents on your own side without getting them feeling attacked? Because on the whole, at least you should be offering a much better education to the children than the parents ever had. But the parents are going to have feelings about that.
Would you say that's why, with your talks and talking about your story, you focused more on the younger people? Because you yourself have a sense that they're more likely to take on board what you say?
Yes, because they're more likely to think outside the box. But I have to be careful that I don't turn them against their parents, because sure as anything, they will go home and tell their parents all about it. I often wonder what they actually tell their parents, because when you talk to a room full of children, you can be sure that only half of them are actually engaged at any one moment.
Yeah.
You can actually see some of them wandering around the room with their eyes. So some of them will take very mixed up stories home to their parents. And I've had cases of that, where parents have contacted the school when I've talked in a class, and have there was one case where the headmaster called me in and said to me, "We've got to sort this out. I've had parents ringing me up saying, who is this person who is saying God knows what?" I can't remember what it was, but they've got it all twisted, as children will if only half their attention is there.
Of course. And it's not I think, yeah, I've been to a few of your talks, and it covers a lot, and it's very interesting. But I could see,
I've learned to use a technique of gathering their attention by inviting them to think along with me about something. And I actually do that now. I actually invite them to think about if you were this person.
Yeah.
Because that interests youngsters.
Yeah, I think that definitely would. And that is obviously very relevant to now, where we could think about if we were in these situations, especially with refugees. I mean,
yes.
Think
about what it's actually like to have had to leave your home because it was dangerous to stay there. That's what these people are here for. Because if they'd stayed at home, they were in danger and they might not be alive. They fled because it wasn't safe to stay in their home. And I know what that's like because I had to flee from my home.
And you were without, because I'm right in saying the UK sponsored the kinder transport, the Quaker Church. So
well, the Quakers sponsored a large number of them, but so did many other individuals. I mean, there were 10,000. That's a lot of kids to sponsor, and the government required £50 from each of them. Now, that would probably be 5,000 in today's money.
Wow.
You had to put down, you had to pay the government a holding fee in case things went wrong and you couldn't look after the child anymore. It was a big commitment to take on a refugee child.
Of course. And I think that does link in with today, because I get the sense with some of my circles that they feel they can't really do much because Ukraine is in Ukraine and we're in the UK, but obviously your story, you were in Germany. And
everybody has a voice and a brain. Everybody can think for themselves, and if they think something's wrong, they have a voice to say it. And not enough people think enough, and not enough people use their voice.
And I would say that I remember you talking about Putin long ago, that he should be locked up long ago. And here we are. And I think
he's a menace.
Yeah. As you say, there's a difference between using your brain and using your voice. And I think, you know, we're moving now quickly where we have to quickly use our voice. Here's a question for you, an interesting one. If I was Vladimir Putin, what would you say?
If you were Vladimir Putin,
quite a thought.
If I had the chance to actually meet him, that's quite a daunting idea. And I would love the chance, but I mean, it's in fantasy.
It is.
But I would love to be able to say to him, look, think about what your policies and your programs are doing to people, to individual, actual people who have as much right in this world as you have.
And he's
the trouble is that when somebody gets power, an awful lot of people don't know how to handle power, and they abuse it. And Putin is certainly one who cannot handle power.
Yeah.
It goes to their head, and it changes their personality. It gives them weird feelings of infallibility, indestructibility. They're most unsuitable as leaders once they've been affected by power. And unfortunately, so many leaders have not been able to deal with power, the power of leadership.
Yeah. And would you say on the other side, the Ukrainian president Zelensky, he in a way is such an inspiration, really, because he's not backing down. He's trying to bring camaraderie to all of us together to fight against this, you know, illegal war. And
is war ever legal?
So I'm using that in the sense of, so there's a definition with the UN about the difference between fighting soldiers and the military and fighting civilians. And Putin has now crossed that line where he's blowing up civilians.
There are certainly illegal aspects there are rules of law. But if you think about this, isn't it an oxymoron to have rules of law, rules of war? Because in my view, you've abandoned rules by having a war at all.
Yeah,
because the rules should be that you respect each other enough to sit down and talk.
And I totally agree, because it seems like the war of the jungle, in the sense of guns are being handed to Ukrainians, normal Ukrainians.
Yeah.
And if
supplying them with guns and other weapons is a cop-out, because you're claiming to be supportive when really you're being destructive.
I think
I would not be in favor of supplying anyone with weapons, period.
Yeah, it is.
I think we should work really hard at an international level to get weapons of war abandoned totally. Not just mass destruction weapons, but all weapons.
That would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we're all one species, for heaven's sake. And we need to be fighting the threats outside our species, not within ourselves. And the biggest threat is climate change.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, yeah, thank you very much. I think that was all my questions, but it's very interesting to hear
well, I've written your questions down.
Yeah, did you have any?
How has my upbringing defined me? That's a very important one. From very early on, I developed a realization that I had to think for myself and defend myself, which in retrospect is very unusual for a 4-year-old. Very few 4-year-olds would have any idea of not being protected and having to protect themselves. But that was the effect on me of coming over to England.
Right. And I was just going to say, was there more of a sense that you had to be careful who you trusted and things like this?
Yes.
Be careful where you went?
Yes. I had my brother with me. I knew I could trust my brother.
Yeah.
But he warned me not to trust anyone. And I certainly didn't trust anyone but my brother. And when in doubt, I would refer back to him.
And that's why in your book you say you really couldn't have done it without your brother.
I wouldn't have survived on my own. I mean, physically, if I had good carers, I would have survived physically, but my inner self wouldn't have been able to develop. Similarities between Ukraine war and the stress of growing up in Nazi Germany. Now, the stress must be enormous, particularly on the children.
Yeah.
The anxiety and the uncertainty. And you can't hide that from children. The tendency when I was a kid in the war period was not in front of the children, but that makes children more anxious. They know that there's something bad, and really you should explain what's going on in terms that a child can understand. And hopefully that is that would be what children today are getting, but I'm sure that some families try to protect them from knowing about it, and you can't protect children completely. You have to do some explaining. How to help the war effort? Anything that brings the two sides together to talk. War is so futile because you end up talking together. Why not start off by talking together when there's a conflict and avoid the war? But will humans ever learn? Advice to younger generations about war. Emphasize that no one ever wins in war. Everyone loses. Get talking, avoid war. And I think that is so important, and it should be built into our education system, that people who look very different and do things very differently are still the same human race. And we should be interested in, by all means, comparing what we do to what they do, but accepting and valuing difference is something that should be built into our education, and it isn't. We tend to, there's an unspoken sort of contempt for people who do things differently.
Right.
Whereas we should be interested in people who do things differently, because we might learn something.
Yeah, I totally agree. I saw that in my time in education, that could be worked on.
Yeah, good. Advice to the younger generation tackling war. Nobody wins, everybody loses.
Yeah.
It's hard to get that across.
Yeah.
Because there is such a drive to win. We have so much in the way we organize our lives. Winning is good.
Yeah.
And sometimes winning is bad. We need to stop emphasizing winning, because winning means that there is usually necessarily a loser. And we want a situation where nobody loses.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Where we support each other instead of fight each other. And that's my advice to younger generations in tackling conflict. Nobody wins if you go on to war, therefore get talking instead of war.
I agree.
You said something about who would I look for?
Yeah, so I saw this question online once and I thought it's such an interesting question. So if you walked into a room and you somehow everyone you ever met in your life was in the room, who would you look out for?
My brother Martin.
Oh, that's lovely.
I miss him terribly.
And with also him being a bit older during your experiences, he would have a very interesting take on current situations.
Yes, he would. We seldom agreed.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes, we would argue and argue and argue, but we always,
like most siblings.
Yes, but we always ended up agreeing to differ. We respected each other's position. We didn't try to beat the other down into agreeing with you. And that, I think, is a failing in many families, where the stronger sibling, which can be the younger one, the stronger sibling beats the weaker one into agreeing, ending up agreeing. We ended up in agreeing not to agree. And I think that's terribly important.
It really fits into exactly what we've been talking about, the sense of just discourse, discussions, and coming up to some sort of agreement. Because obviously when you say about, you know, bringing the war discussions, doing them as quickly as possible, they're going to be tricky discussions. Like there has been ceasefire talks with Putin already, but there hasn't been a major one. And when that one comes, which it will, as you say, it always ends like that. That's another one where there's going to be sort of negotiations, but anything's better than war, really.
Well, is it? Not to everyone. And I think Putin is one of the people who cannot face losing.
Yeah, definitely.
Cannot face being wrong. I don't think he's capable of backing down and saying, well, it wasn't what I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting.
And unfortunately, leaders tend to get into this position of really believing that they can't be wrong.
Yeah. And then when things like war starts to happen, negotiations become very difficult.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that now, I think, well, this current Ukrainian war has been going on for 2 weeks. There were obviously mass protests across the world, and including those very brave Russians protesting. I think it's very important now that we don't move on to like the next topic. As you say, if war's not going on, we should always concentrate on climate change and education and things. But unfortunately, it is going on. So we need to really like keep up the discussion and help. In many ways, there are ways you can donate and things, and there are obviously the refugee crisis now is happening right now, and there's been images of in Germany, I don't know if you saw them, of like houses with massive signs saying welcome refugees and things.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's incredible. So it's been good to talk to you, really. I had one non-war question.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a silly question, but it's been going on. It's been going around social media.
I tell school groups, no question is silly.
Well, you might change your mind after this question.
No, if somebody asks a question that seems on the surface to be silly, I respond, first of all, by saying, I wonder if you can tell me what made you ask that question.
What?
Before I can answer it, I need to know a bit more.
And are those, when you get those kids saying that?
Yeah.
Why do you think they think their questions are silly? And I'm guessing they're not silly questions.
Yes. It's their shyness, and it's to do with the peer group, to do with being laughed at or challenged later, something like that.
Right.
Because as far as I'm concerned, no question is silly.
Well, this is not to do with war, but I'm interested in your answer because all my friends and family are talking about it. So the question is, in the world, are there more doors or wheels? That's the question.
Doors or wheels?
Yeah. So if you counted up all the doors in the world and all the wheels, what is there more of?
That's an intriguing question.
I told you it was silly, but
No,
I
I
think.
don't think. I'd like to know. I'd like to know why it came into your mind.
Well, because so I use this social media called Twitter, and it went viral. So millions of people have been asking this question. So this
Are
is
there
what.
more wheels or doors
So
in the world?
loads of people have been discussing this question, and that is the randomness of what can go viral.
Yeah, but it's such an intriguing question.
It is because
It wasn't your question to begin with.
no.
Because how did it get there? I'm always interested in how a question arises.
Well, I think this one went viral on social media because obviously you can't work it out.
No, there's no answer. You have to guess.
So you have to guess, and because there's theories for both sides, it's quite equal. So there's a lot of team doors and a lot of team wheels. So that has like evolved the questions, and
A
I
lot
think
of
that's
what
why.
doors? A lot of what doors?
So a lot of people would say doors, and a lot of people would say wheels. So they're both.
Oh.
So that's why it's gone viral, I think, because it leads to discussion.
Yes, it's a good discussion point because I haven't a clue.
Oh, no one does. People think they do.
I'm always more interested in the meaning of the question and how it arose. Wheels are to get away from. Doors are to seek refuge. Refuge.
Yeah.
In. So is it a juxtaposition of flight and hiding?
Maybe. That's a very interesting answer. I like that answer.
And a way of expressing the general insecurity.
So wheels are for people that are flighters.
Yeah.
And doors are for
doors
fighters.
Are people are for hiders.
For hiders are hiders.
Hiders and fighters.
I like that answer.
But it expresses the insecurity of the moment. Otherwise, you wouldn't need either, would you?
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. So would so just for like to end the interview podcast, what do you see in the younger generation? Because obviously you've met so many young people, probably tens of thousands, probably. I'm not sure, but a lot.
I have seen a lot, and I see the possibility of the possibility of a better future for humanity than my generation, have achieved.
And I think we've seen that.
I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, and I agree. I think we've seen that in things like the Black Lives Matter recent events, the Me Too, the environmental, the mass protests. And I think we are slowly becoming a generation of protesters who aren't gonna not have our voices heard. We can, and through the power of technology now, I could right now message all of my friends, put it all over my social media that I want to go and protest about Ukraine. Someone did this in Birmingham. I went to a protest 2 weeks ago, and potentially thousands of people could come. So we have the means, and I do see. Well, I hope you're right that we are a generation that can help with war and with climate change.
Help with stopping
war, yes. Anti-war.
Preventing war. Nobody, the one thing that I try to get people to think is that nobody wins a war, everybody loses.
Yeah. I like that, because that summarizes everything.
mean, the resources that are poured into a war.
Staggering.
Well, if you didn't, if you had those resources for making life better for everyone, we waste, so wasteful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Granny. That was.
Thank you. It's been very interesting. I've
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
I knew it would be. I knew it would be. So when it all happened with Ukraine, I thought I'd love to hear your take on things.
So what are you going to do with it? Post it on something or other?
Yeah, I think I will. I think I'll post it on my social medias, and then
I'd be very interested in responses.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely email you responses.
Yeah, because people need to be woken up to doing a bit more thinking than they're used to doing.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, and yeah, and yeah, we'll see what happens with the war and things.
Good for you in
Thank you.
initiating this.
Well, thank you for getting on Zoom and doing your time.
Well, it's been very interesting. I love being stimulated to think.
Good.
And I don't think enough people think enough.
I agree.
So anything to get people thinking and sharing ideas.
Yeah.
Will move the human race forward.
Yeah, for sure.
It's when we don't talk and start fighting that there's trouble.
Yeah, I agree. What have you got planned for today, or with Mum? Or she's out today, is she?
No, she's working.
Oh, she's working.
Oh, has she got? No, she's gone out with Barry, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, it's nice having her for a week.
Of course. And now like the weather's a bit better.
Yes. Yes, I'm looking forward to going to the seaside. Last year, she came and took me to the seaside about 3 times.
Oh, that's lovely.
I love a day at the seaside.
Yeah, so do I. I went quite a lot growing up in Norwich because it was you just had to get the train to Cromer.
Yes. I don't think I've been to Cromer.
Maybe not. It's a lovely seaside, but you can't swim. Well, you can't swim in most British seasides.
Why? Why can't
you cold.
Swim? Oh, yes, it's too cold most of the year.
Yeah, you can in the summer.
But hardy people do swim.
Hardy people do, yeah.
You'll always find somebody swimming when you go to the seaside, even in the winter.
Do you? Oh, okay. Oh,
no, I don't. I paddle.
Paddle, yeah. So yeah. Is this which seaside is near you?
Oh, you can get to the east coast or the south coast, both about equidistant.
That's lovely. Well, hopefully you'll get that done when Mum's here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we will when the weather's a bit better.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well,
perhaps you'll come with us.
Yeah, I'm actually going to Holland soon, but when I'm back, I'll definitely try. Yeah, I'll definitely come and visit 73.
Yes, do. You're always welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I will. Brilliant.
Okay, I hope you've got what you wanted.
I do.